Yes, on Algeria, and just to say we do have this text available in French as well, and a recording of this briefing in French, if for those who need that. We're increasingly concerned about the situation in Algeria, where the rights to freedom of opinion and expression, peaceful assembly, and participation in public affairs continue to be under attack. Since the resumption of demonstrations in the streets of Algeria on the 13th of February this year, after a year of protests that were held largely online by the Iraq movement due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've received sustained reports of unnecessary and disproportionate force against peaceful protesters, as well as continuing arrests. On 4 occasions in April and May, student marches were prevented. The authorities have continued to block access to meeting points for demonstrations. Hundreds of protesters or anyone alleged by security forces to be a demonstrator are being arbitrarily arrested. Some protesters were reportedly detained and later released after being forced to sign a document promising to cease participating in protests. Currently, around 70 people are still reportedly detained for exercising their legitimate human rights, and some of them are serving lengthy sentences while others are still in pretrial detention. New allegations of physical and sexual violence in detention have also been surfacing in recent days. Over the past 2 months, activists, human rights defenders, students, journalists, bloggers, and just ordinary citizens peacefully expressing dissent have continued to face criminal prosecution. Iraq activists continue to be prosecuted on the basis of overly broad laws, even after a presidential pardon was announced in February 2021. So we urge the Algerian authorities to stop using violence to disperse peaceful demonstrations, to halt arbitrary arrests and detention of individuals for exercising their fundamental rights to freedom of opinion, expression, and peaceful assembly. And we also call on the Algerian authorities to fulfill the presidential pardon granted to people participating in the Iraq movement, and to cease all forms of harassment and intimidation against them. And we reiterate our call on the authorities to conduct prompt, impartial, and effective investigations into all allegations of human rights violations, and to hold accountable those responsible, and to ensure that the victims have access to redress. We also urge the authorities to review the Penal Code and other repressive legislation, notably Law 12-06 on associations and Law 91-19 on public meetings and demonstrations, in order to bring them into line with the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, both of which have been ratified by Algeria. And that's that.
Merci, Rupert. Catherine.
Yes, good morning, Alessandra. Good morning, Rupert. Thank you. Please, could you send out your notes? And as quickly as possible, because it allows us to cover, to have a better coverage of what is said during those UN briefings. Regarding Algeria, Rupert, do you have more details about the number and the age of people detained? And does the High Commissioner Commissionary have a contact with the Algerian authorities? Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Yeah, the briefing notes will come as quickly as we can get them to you. That's always the case. Sometimes there are changes being made or whatever, but they should come to you very shortly. In terms of the arrests, well, as I said, there are around 70 people who are reportedly currently detained for exercising their human rights. To be more precise, but it's a slightly older figure, as of the 6th of May, so 5 days ago, there were 74 prisoners of opinion currently detained, and 42 of those have been detained in April and 3 of them in May. And that was just on the 6th day of May. And of those, 48 were in pretrial detention, and that included 2 journalists, Rabah Karesh and Noureddin Tounsi. In terms of ages, I'm not sure. I don't have any information on that.
And that was the only question I can see on Algeria. So thank you very much, Rupert, for these extensive briefings. Thank